Hello and welcome to What Now? And with Aaron and Eric, it's going
Oh
down real
man.
fast. I'm
Oh
Anna.
geez. I'm Eric. I always wait to see what announcer voice you're going to use in the introduction because sometimes you come at it like excited, sometimes you come at it with like your newscaster voice. I
Yeah.
always wait for it. That's the exciting time for me to see which Anna is going to show up in the intro.
One day I should just go really high. Hello. Hello. Oh, we can't even do it.
Go like cartoon character voice.
I feel
Oh,
like if I did,
I
it
don't
would
know.
immediately turn off anybody who was listening, especially if they were listening for the first time. They'd be like, no,
Nope, not doing it. I
moving on
can't
to
do
something else.
it. Oh, well.
What can you do?
Oh,
So
I
we're
I
reading
have
the
some
Bible.
bad news for you.
You have
I
bad
have some
news?
bad. Yeah, I have some bad news. I don't have a 3-word summary for this week. I totally just realized right now, and I wanted to confess it in the moment, so I didn't try to hide it or try to cover it up. I don't have a 3-word summary this
You
week.
you weren't even gonna just try and like spoof something?
Nope,
You're
I
so good
wasn't
at
even.
coming up with things on the fly.
I know, but you know what? Today, I just wanted to be honest. I felt like I needed to come from a place of honesty and truth with you.
It's good. Good
So,
stuff.
all right. So now that I get, I feel a lot better about this. All right, good deal. Let's do this. All right, what are we in? Romans 3? Wait, no,
Romans
no.
3. I was like, what? No, we're not in Romans
Oh,
3.
total bummer. All right, hit
My
it, Anna.
3-word summary is
Yes.
Kings Gone Bad.
Oh, see, that's a good one. See, I didn't even need one. Yours was just so much better than mine would have ever been.
Isn't it great? So we're reading through the Bible chronologically in a year. We encourage you to get on that. A lot of great things come out of even just reading through the Bible with somebody, but also chronologically has been pretty cool. Although the chronology in this section was super weird because we kept bouncing back and forth between like Kings and Chronicles, and it kept going back and forth between generations because it wasn't chronologically written. Did you have that problem too, like
You know,
following at some points?
well, and I got so upset because at one point it had you read like I think it was Second Kings 8 something, but then on the reading plan it was like read Second Kings 8, and then it had you go back and read like Second Kings 8:3. I'm like, I already read that. It was already in the plan. Like, cut it
Yeah.
out. That's just rude.
It was pretty
But
funny.
yeah,
But
no,
no.
yeah, but yeah. Once again, this old Bible's getting a workout, getting a
Yeah.
workout, moving around. But it's all right.
So we were pretty solidly just talking about kings like the whole time. I mean, there was some prophet stuff that happened in there, but that also was in tandem with the kings. So really, to summarize this whole week of reading, bad kings, good prophets. Like
There,
that's
the people that are actually hearing from God and following what He's saying, good. The
yeah.
people that are going a different direction, bad.
With like
That's
one semi exception, and that was about it.
there's
Like,
always an exception to every rule.
yeah. So in this case, Jehoshaphat was a kind of good guy.
He
He went
kind of did
astray
all right.
in some areas. What I did like, and I put this down as one of my verses. Wait. Let me find out which one is. Jehoshaphat was a good king. Oh, okay. So this is a summary of him. Jehoshaphat was a good king following the example of his father, Asa, who we talked about last week. He did what was pleasing in the Lord's sight. During his reign, however, he failed to remove all the pagan shrines, and the people still offered sacrifices and burned incense there. He also just kept bad company, like generally. So that
I
was
always
the thing.
I was like, when was it? 22:8. It said, "Is there no longer a prophet of the Lord who we can inquire of?" The king of Israel answered Jehoshaphat, "There is still one prophet, though, whom we can inquire of the Lord. but I hate him because he never prophesies anything good about me, but always bad. Like,
yeah, that was a pretty funny part.
There's one we could ask, and I know he's got a good line to God, but I hate him. I don't like him because I don't get anything good out of it.
But Jehoshaphat was, and there is a verse, I think it's in chapter 3 of 2 Kings, where it says Elijah actually liked Jehoshaphat. And I can only assume the reason is Jehoshaphat did have a tendency to always ask, hey, can we hear what God has to say about this before going and doing whatever this thing? It happened like 3 times in 3 different scenarios where he's like, okay, but let's talk to a prophet of God first, specifying a prophet of God. Because the other guys were like, let's bring in prophets that will say nice things about us.
Yeah. He always went to the right sources. Following them is a whole different story. But you know what? He always at least brought him into the conversation.
Yeah, for real.
So
he was the star. He was the star.
There you go. He'll get a gold star out of this. Out of this week's reading, Jehoshaphat, you get a gold star. Congratulations.
Maybe all right, so now that we've gotten him out of the way, let's talk about the bad people.
All right. So, fire it up. Fire it up.
What were your thoughts, Eric, on the long line of horrible kings?
Well, this is kind of, I don't know where we go with this, but like this is, like I told you, this is like my horror movie moment. Like those parts of the horror movie where you just put your hand over your face, but then you want to peek through and you want to see what's going on. But like nothing good is happening, and it gets so muddled down with so many different idols and so many different other things going on. And I just keep going back to, like, it was so simple in the early Old Testament when we just worried about somebody getting their one slave girl pregnant and having a kid. And now we've got like 700 wives, and like it got so crazy. Like it just snowballed into this moment where we're at. And I think that's kind of when I look at reading chronologically through, I look at it and I go, wow, it was a simpler time when there were only 2 or 3 wives. Like it was a simpler time in the Bible. And now we get to this point where it's spewed into culture where it's like, what God do we even go to, or what idol do we even need to work? We can't even keep that straight because there's so many different forms of worship and everything going on that it just gets so crazy. And then you throw in power and riches and rule, all of that into the mix. Who knows? They have no idea which way they're going.
And I think to your point, like when you talk about snowballing, things are snowballing, I think that is a pretty big Jesus reason, like we started out with how do you pay for sins? You pay for sins through, sacrificing all of your cattle, et cetera, et cetera. And then it kind of got to the point with all the snowballing where it was like, there needs to be another option, really.
Well, and that's what, and I get into that conversation a lot with students and why didn't God just step in and send Jesus at this point or that point? And it's like, you see God just exhausting all of these options, giving us these chances to do the right thing. Like he's giving us all of these chances. We just keep going and going and going. And it's just like, man, eventually he's going to have to, Jesus is going to come on the scene, but man, God just tries so hard to give us people that are speaking directly to him and follow this advice, do it yourself, do it on your own. And we just keep not doing a good job at all.
Some fun parts, which I think,
I like that you found fun parts.
Yeah, well, you have to. Yeah, this section it's like, it's sad and graphic, and it's just like over and over and over and over kings that are like, and this king did what was bad, and this king did what was bad, and it just goes generation and generation, and they're each dying horrible deaths, and all of this other bad stuff is happening. So you kind of have to look for the humor in it. And I think a lot of the humor did come from the prophets who made appearances throughout. The big ones being Elijah and Elisha. There was Micaiah in there at one point who was, again, hated by Ahab because he never said anything good about him. Because God never said anything good about him.
Yeah, you get what you put into the situation.
Yeah, but there were some funny moments. Like there's this moment after Elijah comes in, he gets all the prophets of Baal killed, and then he says, it's in 1 Kings chapter 18. Then Elijah said to Ahab, "Go get something to eat and drink, for I hear a mighty rainstorm is coming," because there was a drought. So Ahab went to eat and drink, and I was just like, "What? This is your arch enemy?" He literally calls him, like, he literally greets Elijah as, "Oh, it's my enemy," and your enemy tells you to go eat and drink some food, and you're just like, "Okay."
Yeah, like,
you
know what? I am getting a little. I'm getting a little hungry. You're right. I'm gonna go grab a snack. Yeah,
it was weird.
And that, right in there is where I kind of, it's highlighted, I think, in every Bible that I have. It's over and over again, but that's when Elijah asked the questions, how long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal is God, follow him. But the people said nothing. And I just think that was, at least with everything going on with Black Lives Matter, with the hurt and the pain that people are going through, that's what I thought that struck me so much differently this time, because a lot of what I hear from people when I'm listening to the different information, it's like the biggest problem is people just going silent and not taking a stand one way or another, not really identifying. And I look at that and it's like, wow, even there where people just saw something miraculous happen and they just sat there silent. They're like, we got nothing. Like, we don't know. And it's better just to let it play out. It's like, no, you have to really choose your side and really stand up for what you truly believe in. So I just think that's a really powerful verse in that moment.
What we've read so far in the Bible, it's not the first time that somebody has asked the question, like, well, all right, who's going to say something about what's happening now? So it's very much a recurring theme.
Yeah. One of the things, and I think it was 17, 13, and 15. It's when Elijah goes to the widow and she doesn't have anything, and he asks for bread and she gives the last little bit. She has such a huge faith and such a huge trust in what's going on that I just put that down there of something that needed to be looked at, because that sacrificial giving, like how many times are we so worried about, do we have enough and do we have what we need? And it's like she was willing to give every last little bit to help the situation. So I thought that was inspirational, or at least humbling and inspirational for me when I read it.
You just went so deep on this. I was mostly just like between laughing and cringing. As I was reading it. I was like, that's not entirely true. There was one moment where, this is my one sort of serious moment in all of this. There was this one moment where Elijah does this big miracle, then he runs away. And then it's 1 Kings 19:4. Then he went on alone into the wilderness, traveling all day. He sat down under a solitary broom tree and prayed that he might die. "I have had enough, Lord," he said. "Take my life, for I am no better than my ancestors who have already died." And what just really struck me about that is, here's Elijah. He just came off this great victory in his life, this really high point, and then things go bad and he's tanks emotionally.
Yeah.
And how many times in our own lives have we found ourselves under a broom tree going, well, crap, God, life sucks. Yeah. Can we end it now? Like, this is horrible. And then later on, God sends an angel to provide for him and then takes him into a cave and straightens him out. but it's just that moment,
Well, and that's what I mean. If you look at those words from God right after that, what are you doing here? Like, that's where he's in this point. He's emotionally cashed out. He's like, listen, I'm done. And God's like, why are you at this place? Like, let's go. Like, get out of that. Let's do what you were supposed to do. And he shows it's the earthquake, it's the fire, and then the the whisper of God comes in that. Like, there, it's that small whisper. And if there's all this distraction, all this other stuff, and you're in this place of, man, I can't do this anymore, I'm done, that whisper of God going, what are you doing here? Like, this is not the plan and the purpose that I had for you. And I just think that is such a powerful piece of scripture, because I think we're all at that point in our lives sometimes where we're just like, this is hopeless, nothing's going on, I'm just going to hide out, I'm just going to close everything off. And do we really hear, in all of that distraction, do we hear God saying, what are you doing here? Like, why is that happening? Get up and let's do what you were called to do. So yeah, that is a huge a huge moment of scripture that I always go to in that. So I like that.
Okay. Do you want to hear one of my funny ones?
Yeah, listen, bring it.
1 Kings chapter 20, verses 10 through 11. Then Ben-Hadad sent this message to Ahab. May the gods strike me and even kill me if there remains enough dust from Samaria to provide even a handful for each of my soldiers. The king of Israel sent back this answer. A warrior putting on his sword for battle should not boast like a warrior who has already won. And I was like, this is old-time King Smack talk that is happening right now. They're just like sending messages back and forth like, yeah, well, what do you think of this, buddy?
But right here, like, we can send zingers back and forth. Imagine how long that took. Like, oh, I'm totally going to get him with this one. I'm sending him this one.
Here's my comeback. 20 days later.
Yeah, that's what.
And then you're just sitting there like, what did I even say to him in the first place? I don't remember.
Yeah, like, do you have to remember? Oh, no, remember you said this? Oh, yeah, I did say that. You're right. Yeah, but yeah, like, that's what's so funny is right now, we can look at this as like a face-to-face, like, rap battle almost.
Like they're just shouting at each other.
Yeah, but it's seriously like,
so funny.
I've got a good one. Send this to him.
Yeah,
10 days later. But yeah, it's really funny when you take it in context of how long it took for those messages to probably travel back and forth between the two of them. Yeah. I think that's pretty funny.
I did notice something about Ahab's behavior that I had not noticed when I previously read it. And it is the amount of times that he does not get his way. And then it says he went home angry and sullen. And I was like, it's like it's a child. Wandering away from his problems. He's like, oh, I didn't get that vineyard. Oh.
Yeah.
Goes
just
back
pouting.
To his house, tells his wife about it.
Kicking dust up. Yeah, you know.
Which Jezebel is not the person you want to tell about your problems because she's extreme.
No.
She's a horrible person.
She'll take that. I think I would only bring good news home to her. Like, I would only, how was your day? Yeah. How was your day? I don't want to talk about mine. No way.
And I think this does speak to having some discretion when choosing your spouse for those of you who are unmarried. Don't marry Jezebel.
It's that funny thing. You don't see many kids named Jezebel. They don't. That really is hung on
for a good reason.
Yeah, for sure, because that does not work out well for anybody.
Here's another funny one. This is a good one. So this is a different king. This is later. So something was happening, and Elijah. I remember what it was. A king is sick, and so he sent some prophets to basically go ask the prophets of Baal if he's going to live or not. Elijah intercepts them and gives them this prophecy like, oh, because you didn't require or inquire of God, you're going to die. And so the king says, who was this guy who sent you this prophecy? So 2 Kings chapter 1, verse 8, and they replied, he was a hairy man, and he wore a leather belt around his waist. Elijah! From Tishbe, he exclaimed. I was like, he literally recognized him because he was a hairy man with a leather belt.
Yeah, like,
Funny.
you know, you just, when you have a reputation, you have a reputation.
But it was like immediately like, I know who that is. The hairy guy. It's Elijah.
Yeah. Oh, the hairy guy with a belt. Oh, yeah. Was it a leather belt? Yep,
that's him.
Yep, that's him.
Which does kind of give me flashbacks to John the Baptist, who ironically, well, not really ironically, was described as the reincarnation of Elijah. They're both
hairy,
scruffy people.
Yeah, scruffy.
I think
people,
it's a polite way of saying
gentlemen.
it.
Well, and that's what, and I always like the interaction between the prophets and Elijah when it's in chapter 2, right after that, when they keep telling him like, he's going away, he's going to be gone. He's like, quit talking about it. Like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to hear about it. He keeps over and over telling them to just be quiet. Like, stop it. I don't want to hear about this. But then he's so quick, just a few verses later, what can I do for you? Double portion? Maybe a little bit better than what you were doing? Yeah, so I don't know. I thought
that's a bold ask.
But he has invested a lot of time kind of following Elijah around. I think, you know what? He put in his time to be able to make that bold ask. I think he invested a good amount of time of learning.
I think it says something that God granted the bold ask,
Yeah.
And I think that in that sense, we can ask ourselves the question, are there things that we don't ask God for because we don't think he can do it or will do it? Because when I read that, I think, wow, I can't imagine asking that, like that just seems...
But, and like you
rude.
said, do you think that's, but also do you think that's maybe like insecurity on our part where we think, wow, how could he really ask for that? And it's like, well, maybe it's because we couldn't imagine being in a place where we felt courageous enough or worthy enough to ask for something like that. Like maybe our prayers or our asks aren't bold enough because we don't think our self-worth, we feel we're not worthy to ask such a thing. And it's like, God knows our heart. God knows what we're going through. God knows what we can do with it. And so if we have that confidence in ourselves and we know that God's at the center of it, then we should be able to ask those questions, or we should be able to ask for those things with some sort of boldness because we know we're following what God wants for us. So I think that's where that comes from. Is he's been through it and he's like, well, if you're going away, somebody's going to have to step in and do this. So you know what? I can do it. And that's why I think he can make that bold ask.
There's this moment. Again, this is what I considered a funny moment where a king sends he wants to talk to Elijah because again Elijah prophesied something bad about him. It's pretty much standard for Elijah. And so he sends out this captain with 50 men to go and get Elijah. You're laughing because you know what I'm talking about. So they go, they're like, Elijah, come with us. And Elijah's like, as surely as I'm a man of God, you're all going to be burned. And so fire comes down, toasts them. Then the king sends another captain with 50 men. They go out Same thing. Elijah, come with us. Elijah's like,
Mhm.
surely as I'm a man of God, you got to burn. Toasts them again. Finally, he sends out a third guy. This guy immediately goes up to Elijah, falls on his knees, and is like, spare us, please. Like, can you
I'm
imagine
just
being the
following
captain
orders.
that's told to get Elijah after hearing 2 other captains just got toasted? I'd be like, I don't want to go. Don't send me.
Can I not be that one? Can I be like captain number 8 or 9 if this doesn't go well? I don't know how long this is going to play out. Yeah. And that's, I mean, is it in the ask? I don't know. Like, did he, because he fell to his knees, because he asked in a certain way? But I just think that was, like, go down with him and do not be afraid. Like, 3rd time's a charm. Maybe that's where that saying comes from.
Maybe. I don't know.
I never thought about that. Maybe 3rd time's a charm. It came from the fact that
the
that
third captain was the one who did not get burned.
I don't know. But yeah, it makes me, when I read that, I want to kind of know more about why, like, what did the 3rd captain do, or who is this 3rd captain that finally God is like, go with him and do not be afraid. That's a good one. Like, I don't know. It's very interesting.
I think just as I read this week, as we talked about, I didn't get like a ton of deep stuff out of it, but I was, I think it's just important to remember that reading the Bible can be very enjoyable, like if you enjoy reading to any extent, the Bible is just full of like hilarious stuff, number one, deep stuff. Well, actually, deep stuff is technically number 1.
Yeah.
The hilarious stuff, number 2. And it's a good read, Like, have you ever read the Bible just because it's fun to read it? Because it's really.
And you have to take the Bible for the whole thing. And that's where I think what I've seen, at least in discussions, because like I said, I don't know if it's just because I have this, I wouldn't say blind faith, but this huge faith in the Bible and are skeptical of it. And they read things. Oh, well, I see magicians do this stuff all the time. Or if, he probably just pulled a trick in this, or he probably had like the fire. Oh, he probably had that set up. So when they came, and it's like, if you can step out of trying to talk yourself into how it was done and really just look at the heart of what's going on and understanding that people are following God, or they're turning to God, and when they don't, these things happen. And how does that play in our life? I think it is, but I feel some people miss that joy of reading the Bible because they're so busy trying to either talk themselves out of it or explain what, like, they spend so much time reading it to, you're not going to convince me of this and I'm going to pick this apart, rather than reading it and understanding that, man, this is a really good book that can really impact my life in such a positive way. So yeah, have the humor, have the joy. Don't get wrapped up in the trying to talk yourself out of it part of it.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
It's good. It's good stuff.
So what are your next steps? 'Cause I got some next steps. Well, I got one. So
yes,
what do
let
you
me
got?
tell you all the next steps. These were derived from Eric's. These are Eric's next steps. For me, I want to go with Elijah, who wants to die in the desert, and God saying, "Why are you here?" So my next step, or I guess my question to people who may be listening to this, is the question, why are you here? Where are you? What are you doing? Maybe you need to self-assess, which is definitely what Eric would say during this moment.
You know what? I just
Take a moment to self-reflect.
You just stole all of my stuff. You stole all of my material. I give you the courtesy, and I step back and I say, Anna, where are we going with this? And you promptly steal everything.
You're welcome. Isn't that just a testimony to how well we know each other?
I, I guess so. And if you just listen through all the distractions, through everything that's going on, and you hear God asking you, why are you here? And you don't know, and you don't know a way out, maybe kind of searching your heart for where God falls in this is a great way to get out of that place that you're in that you don't feel you should be and move into that next place that God has for you. So I totally agree with Anna's next
and that right
steps.
there,
That was
plagiarism.
huge.
Eric is
Yeah.
plagiarizing my next
Yeah,
step.
I know. I can't say it any better. It was amazing. It was just so amazing. You were one fitness challenge away from hitting on all cylinders.
Oh man,
right
I missed the
fitness. You were just one fitness thing away.
And then ask yourself, why am I not in the gym?
Oh man.
Why not?
You know what? I'm glad we're in this together. I'm glad we learn from each other. That's the way I look
True
at
statement. So thank you for listening to It Now with Anna and Eric. I am Anna.
I'm Eric.
Today.
You're both.
I'm both.
You're all things to all people, Anna. All things to all people.
We are so excited to talk again next week.
Yes.
Still pretty heavy
What?
in Kings Chronicles. I think we get to Amos, one of the books of the prophets at one point. But other than that, it's pretty much solid Kings.
Just moving through it.
Moving through all the kings in the generation. So
all right.
we'll talk to you
next week. See ya.